Why don't we just bring up Elon Musk and we'll have a conversation about it. Welcome to Web 2, Elon. Let's sit right here. So I think I just want to start with sort of the ultimate gadget, like the dream gadget, the six-figure gadget with lots of scarcity. So can we bring that picture up? We cue the red sort of gadget porn. There it is. That's a Tesla Roadster. It costs $104,000.
$109.
Oh.
Yeah, although there is a tax credit that'll take effect next year, bring it down to about 100.
All right. So we're still into six-figure range. You're making how many of them?
We'll make about 1,200 a year, maybe 1,500 a year.
And when you do make 1,500 a year, are you going to make a profit on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this car. Give me the sort of gadget rundown, like the specs, the stats. Like how many cylinders does it have?
Has no cylinders. So the
I was
car
joking. I was joking.
John, I mean, really. So the car is really, I mean, I think the elevator phrase is, it's faster than a Ferrari, more efficient than a Prius. The 0 to 60 time is 3.9 seconds. And we actually are working on a power pack upgrade that'll take that down to about 3.6 to 3.7 next year. The energy efficiency in terms of miles per gallon equivalent is about 130. So that's if you took a gallon of oil and you refine that to gasoline, transport it to a gas station, and how many miles do you get in a car versus you took that gallon of oil, generated electricity, took the transmission losses into account, and then said how many miles do you get out of the car. That's how you get the equivalency. So it's about twice the energy efficiency of a Prius and faster than any Ferrari except the Enzo. So it's really a pretty unique proposition.
But we can't really get one. I mean, not only because it's $100,000, which not everybody's got, but you can only make so many of them.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the important thing I forgot to mention is that the range is almost 250 miles, and that's a combined highway city with the air conditioning on. So, and the charge is built into the car, so you can just plug it into any outlet like it's a hairdryer. It's a
hell of a
yeah.
hairdryer.
Or a laptop, you know. It's a laptop with wheels and seats.
Does it have nav?
It does.
Okay,
and
well
then
I'm in, because otherwise.
So, yeah. So the common thing we hear is, well, geez, this is available to a very small number of people. It's clearly not going to change the climate, and so what if a few rich people get energy efficient cars?
You just took my next question away.
Right. And it's important to emphasize that the point of Tesla, the reason I've funded it and put so much time and effort into it, is really to get to mass market electric cars. But to get there, you need to start with something. And if you look at any new technology development, I think in almost any sphere, you start with something which is expensive, because the first thing is about making the technology work. And then you go from there to optimizing the technology. I'm sure everybody remembers the early days of cell phones or laptops, or even more directly, and if people are aware of the history of internal combustion engine cars, you would know that in the early days of gasoline cars, they were considered toys for rich people because everybody else was riding a horse. And so you need to go through this phase of having an expensive car that is available to a few in order to get to the low-cost car that is available to many. So if you look at our the next product we're coming out with, which is the sedan, and that's a 5-passenger luxury sports sedan. It's half the price of the Roadster. It's called the Model S. We'll be unveiling it in the first quarter next year, and that car's going to be produced at more than 10 times the volume of the Roadster. So we're aiming to make about 15,000 to 20,000 cars a year, and it doesn't stop there. Our third model will be a low-cost car that will be, I think, under $30,000. and that car will be in the hundreds of thousands of units per year.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because you've had some news in the last couple of weeks, and it has been news consistent with pretty much all the rest of the news in the last couple of weeks. Some layoffs, some delays in the S model, as I understand it.
Right.
You've sort of taken officially the title of CEO. You've had a number of CEOs over the last couple of years. I imagine it's not easy to birth an entirely new car company. It's been tried many times before, and most times it doesn't work. And they weren't trying to necessarily invent this at the same time.
Right, absolutely.
So talk to me about why it was that you needed to raise more funds, and why it is that you had to delay the S.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. The last time there was a successful mainstream car startup was Jeep in 1941. So it's been a while. But so it's definitely a hard task, and certainly I didn't think that this would be easy or anything like that. But it seemed as though if action wasn't taken, then if it was simply left up to Detroit, I mean, I think we'd be waiting for a very long time.
Well, Detroit was in the offices of Nancy Pelosi last night, or yesterday, with their tin cups out. I mean, they were really big cups.
Right.
Because apparently it's about $25 billion that they want. Well, they already have that, but they want another $25 billion just so they can keep in business to get the $25 billion that they're going to get next year. I'm curious. I mean, you just had a round of layoffs. The way you did it was interesting. You had sort of, as I understand it, a special forces approach. Like you sort of only the SEALs get through, but the Marines and the Green Berets don't, in terms of the staff that you kept. We've had a discussion over the last 2 days that has certainly included the discussion of entrepreneurs and startups, and the Sequoia memo, and how do we cut but still go forward, and so on. How did you get through that? And tell us a little bit about that process, and why did you have to do it?
Yeah, well, before the market Armageddon occurred, the plan for Tesla was to raise about $100 million and go full force into the Model S development, really into the expensive part of the Model S development. If you look at the development costs for something like a car where you've got a lot of capital equipment, it sort of looks like a hill. You've got a long sort of tail, and then when it comes time to buy all the factory equipment, all that sort of stuff, that's where you've got to spend a couple $100 million. So we intended to sort of get going with that at full force prior to the market collapse. And then the market collapsed, and clearly that would have been a very difficult strategy to execute.
And so my gut tells me you could have probably raised the money, but you didn't want to give away the equity. Is that what it came down to?
I think
the pricing was too bad.
I think we could have raised the money at very difficult terms. Essentially, giving up control of the company and just with very difficult ratchets and all sorts of things involved.
Well, you did pretty well before you started Tesla. Maybe you could have
sure.
looked in the mirror and written yourself a check.
Well, I actually have done that. So
there's a certain point where your tolerance gets.
Yeah, but it's tough to carry it all yourself.
We can drop the picture now because we got other things to talk about. Thanks. You can go to iMag, Johnny, because I know you like. Sorry.
Yeah, well, in effect, that's what we've done. Is rather than raise 100 million, we're raising what we'll have commitments for 40 million from the existing set of investors, which is a bunch of people apart from me.
Right.
I'll be providing about sort of half that, but the other half's coming from the other investors. So, and that's enough to certainly get the Roadster business and our powertrain supply business.
Right. So you have a business where you're supplying to other. Right.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that powertrain supply business is part of what will allow us to get to mass market affordable cars.
Because that business is profitable, right?
It is, yes. Yeah. And we expect the Roadster business to be profitable in the second quarter next year.
Right.
So,
did you ever consider if they can afford $109,000, why not just price it at $200,000? Because anyone can. I mean, you have a waiting list of how long?
1,200. Yeah. No, it's always tough figuring out pricing. Some people are relatively insensitive to pricing. Some people are extremely sensitive to pricing. We wanted the price of our car to be something that was comparable to the gasoline sports car.
Like a Ferrari.
Well, we're actually cheaper than a Ferrari, but comparable to, say, a Porsche. You know, if you look at a Porsche Turbo, it's about $125,000 or so. Or Porsche 911 S is, you know, high 90s. So we wanted to be something where it's in the realm of a comparable price to other sort of normal sports cars, apart from the super exotics.
I want to move on because we've got a lot to talk about very quickly. May I just ask you again about sort of your philosophy around, you couldn't raise that money, you needed to lay off staff. What was your approach to that?
So there were two parts to it. One was sort of a reduction in force for people that were working on the Model S, because we just couldn't afford to sustain you know, a large group working on the Model S. So we knocked that down to about 10% of the company working on the Model S. And then we did an overall review of the company, and I said, look, let's approach this from a standpoint of, I wanted to sort of accentuate the philosophy that I have with companies in the startup phase, which is a sort of special forces approach. You know, the minimum passing grade is excellent, and that's you know, that's the way I believe startup companies need to be if they're ultimately going to be large and successful companies. You know, I think we'd adhered to that to some degree, but we'd strayed from that path in a few places. And that doesn't mean the people that we let go on that basis would be considered bad. You know, it's just a difference between sort of special forces and regular army. And if you're going to get through a really tough environment and ultimately grow the company to something significant, you have to have a very high level of dedication and talent throughout the organization.
I want to move on because we've got a lot to cover. I want to talk a bit about Solar City. So give us the sort of elevator pitch as to what that company does.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, before I do that, it's worth noting, you know, from a business standpoint, my time is split roughly evenly between Tesla and SpaceX.
Right.
So Solar City, I spend hardly any time on and deserve really hardly any credit for. The guys there are just phenomenally good. They actually blow my mind. So Solar City, the value proposition that they have, they're the most efficient provider of solar-powered systems at the residential and small business level by a long shot. And they also have a unique financing product which allows people to sign up for solar with no money down, and your cost of electricity decreases. So it's a no-brainer. How do you say no to something like that? In fact, we're expecting Solar City sales to actually accelerate within the recession because you save money. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the Solar City just did a financing round that was about 3x the round it did a year ago.
That makes it unusual.
Yeah. And we're expecting business to at least double in 2009 over 2008.
So,
I mean, what do you say to that? Yeah.
That sounds great too. It sounds like if you could merge Solar City and Tesla, you could have raised that 100 million. So, actually, I had one last question about Tesla that I didn't get to, which is maybe unfair, but how did we get here? Not the Tesla piece, but how did the automobile industry end up where it is? Like, help us understand what happened in Detroit such that we got to the point where the industry literally is not viable.
You know, I don't think I have a really great answer for that. I think there's issues with organized labor, and there are issues with entrenched management that, you know, still wants to run a company like it's 1955. So, you know, there's too many country club memberships, and I think that, yeah, and the management sort of focused on the wrong things.
But GM has this Volt project. How is it that you could get the Tesla up and running and the transmission and the drivetrain done? Mm-hmm. And they've been working on the Volt project seemingly for, well, at least for 5 years or something. And
no, actually, the Volt is relatively new. I think, So the Volt is actually inspired by Tesla, and Bob Lutz has gone on record as saying.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So in fact, that was one of the positive effects that I'd hoped Tesla
Why
would
don't
have.
they just buy Tesla?
I'm not sure they could afford Tesla right now.
Their market cap. Did you guys get that? Did you get?
I mean,
because the market cap of GM right now is less than Burger King.
right.
It's 2.8 billion.
Burger King's that low?
Well, actually, Michael Pollan this morning, that's probably a good thing that Burger King's market cap has been hammered as well. But yeah, they're 2.8 billion or something like that. So everyone's madly doing calculations right now on Tesla's value. But yeah, do you think the Volt's going to work? Do you hope it's going to work, or
I do hope it's going to work. Absolutely.
Yeah.
My motive. The thing of Peugeot, I'm a volunteer at this point. There's nothing I want to buy personally that I can't buy, and I don't really like yachts or anything like that. So my interest is really from an environmental standpoint, to some degree from a national security standpoint, and then longer term from an overall economic situation standpoint, which is if you've got a non-renewable fuel, you better find a renewable source or the economy is going to collapse down the road. So my interest is like, what can we do to get as many renewable energy cars on the road as possible? My personal belief in the right solution is electric cars and primarily solar power, although wind and geothermal are also good options. And so one of the things I was hoping would occur would be that the larger car companies would look at what Tesla's done and establish electric car programs sooner than they might otherwise do so. Mm-hmm. I mean, they would eventually do so, but if we could sort of show them that the technology is possible to make the technology work, and that people want to buy electric cars when you make them, because previously the car industry had thought you can't make the technology work, and even if you did, people wouldn't buy it.
Right.
So if we can prove those premises false, then that would get the car industry moving in the direction of electric, and that has had some positive effect with the Volt
program,
which directly credits Tesla.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, one last question on the cars, and then we're going to go to space. Shea Agassi is coming later, and he's got another sort of an alternative approach to this particular sea simmering, which is the battery pack per se is distinct from the car, and there's service stations and a whole grid network, and what do you make of that model, and do you think the two can coexist, or is it one's going to win and the other's not?
Well, I think what he's doing is somewhat orthogonal to us, or perhaps rather in terms of being a competitor. I think it's more of a sort of symbiotic thing that we're making electric cars. He's not making electric cars. He's helping or wants to help build the infrastructure to swap out battery packs and have fast charge stations and that sort of thing.
He does have a model, though, right?
No, he doesn't make cars.
Yeah.
No, he's working with some of the other car makers to encourage them to make electric cars, but he's not himself an electric car maker.
So do you think it's going to work?
His model?
Yeah.
I think yes, eventually. The question is one of timing. You don't want to have the cart before the horse, and so I think what he's doing is right. And really, it's just time will tell whether it's a thing to do now or a thing to do later.
So let's swap to another really big, or potentially really big industry. I mean, it is a very big industry, but it's mostly a government, at least, industry, which is using lots and lots and lots of gas to hurtle things into space.
Right, rockets.
Rockets, right?
Yeah.
So why did you decide that this was an interesting industry to try to reinvent?
Well, so when I was in college, there were I tried to think of what are the things that would most change the future of humanity, and the three things I came up with were the internet, transitioning to a sustainable energy economy, and space exploration, in particular the extension of life to multiple planets. I didn't really think I'd be involved in the third one. I wasn't even sure about the second one. But the first one, fortunately, the internet, you can get something started with very little capital. So did a couple of internet companies, and that gave me the capital to work on the clean energy stuff, which is where Solar City and Tesla come in. And then the third element was space. I just think it's important that we make progress in space, and that we're ultimately that we're on a path. So if you sort of project outwards and extrapolate forward, you can see that one day we would be a spacefaring civilization, and that there would be life on many planets, life as we know it, at least on many planets. I think that's just a very exciting future compared to one where life never gets beyond Earth. And there were all the defensive arguments for that, of course, of like, well, is life going to end on Earth, and maybe we should sort of back up the biosphere, like to sometimes call it. If you back up your hard drive, maybe you should back up life too. And I think those defensive arguments are good. I mean, they're valid and all that. But I'm much more, the thing that sort of gets me excited is really the positive side of it, of the much greater richness in the scope and scale of life, by being out there and being a space, making life sort of multiple planets, so spacefaring.
You're going to be a little stymied here, but I mean, usually when we imagine what you're talking about, we then write a series like Star Trek, or we have, almost every popular culture projection of what you're discussing has men and women in government uniforms, right? Out there exploring on behalf of civilization back home. But you're trying to do this as a private enterprise.
Well, we have lots of government customers, although we have both commercial and government customers.
So tell me, practically, get us to space through SpaceX. Like, how does this happen? You're in the early phase, I understand. You just had your first launch, right?
Well, actually, we had our fourth launch, but our first time to orbit. So SpaceX is about 6 years old. Started it from scratch. I never built any physical hardware myself. Just although I do have a physics background and grew up in a very engineering-centric household. So I'm more an engineer than anything else, I guess. Starting SpaceX, I didn't really know that much about space engineering or rocket engineering, but I learned quite a lot. And as it turns out, I wasn't able to hire anyone to be the chief designer of the rocket, so I ended up being that myself.
So, like a kid in the backyard playing with
we
rockets.
We probably would have gotten to orbit sooner if I'd been able to hire someone, but I wasn't able to. So we got to orbit on our fourth attempt. It's hard to get to orbit, by the way. This is the first.
Well, I haven't tried, but I imagine. At least not in a rocket. But.
Right. I hear you.
But I'm a little bit speechless. The idea that, it's rather audacious. And I asked Lance Armstrong this question, but I'll ask you as well. I mean, how much of this is ego?
I don't know. I mean, there's probably some meaningful amount of ego, I suppose. But,
you just want to go to college and then you're smoking a joint at like midnight, and you're like, I think I'll reinvent space. First the internet, then I'll do the energy economy, then I'll deal with interplanetary travel. I'm pretty sure all of us had that moment in college. But you're the only guy I know who's actually trying to do it.
Well, actually, when I thought about it in college, it wasn't from the standpoint of I'm going to go get these things done. It was really these are what I think are the most important things. It's almost certain I will not be involved in at least the space part of it, probably not the renewable energy part of it, and hopefully the internet. And if I do the internet thing, hopefully I can make enough money to pay the rent. That was actually that was my frame of mind. To be clear, it wasn't.
Well, the internet thing worked out pretty well.
It did. But I started in '95, and nobody had made any money on the internet. And even in Silicon Valley, we went to venture capitalists in '95, and they'd sort of heard of the internet. Most of them weren't even using it. And even if the internet did become widespread, nobody would make any money on it. Then Netscape went public, and that kind of changed people's mindset, and they think, at least from the standpoint of the greater fool theory, like even if there's internet companies can't make money, at least some fool's willing to pay a lot, if they go public. And so that got things more interested. But really, my perspective was starting my first company was hopefully I can make enough money to pay the rent and buy food. Otherwise, I would have to go do my graduate program at Stanford, which is fine. It's a fine option.
The graduate program at Stanford seems to be the launch pad for an awful lot of things.
Yeah, it's somewhat cliche at this point.
Yeah. We're running out of time, but and you still haven't told us exactly how we're going to get to space. But I know that, at least somebody's going to be able to get that tour of the SpaceX factory, which is part of the auction. Thank you very much for that. I know I'm being told, but it's my show. So let's have a couple questions, and then we'll let Elon go. Over here.
Junaid from LeapTech. I tried Tesla, by the way. Spectacular car. I have to nitpick when you're going 60, 70 miles an hour on the highway and you want to pass that car in front of you. You can't just downshift it. But it's okay, I'm nitpicking. The question is, I'm not sure. I would love to see your technology in pretty much all the cars manufactured in the U.S. And I don't think selling to GM is the right solution. But you have the technology. They hopefully have know-how to mass produce cars. So is licensing an option? Maybe combined with some, not just GM, Ford, Chrysler, every car company, maybe combined with.
Yeah, why aren't they?
To have electric cars within 2 years.
I'm sure you'd love to do a deal with all of them, right? So.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Why aren't?
Well,
are they in there? Are they
they
saying
tend
it's
to have sort of an not invented here thing. I don't know. We actually, I should say, we do have a deal with a major car company. It's not a U.S. car company. I can't say who it is, but it's pretty. If you Google around, it's easy to figure it out.
Toyota?
No.
Honda?
Wrong hemisphere.
Yugo?
But I'm very excited by that relationship because it has potential to provide a viable electric car for around $20,000.
Smart. Okay, I'm going to stop. We have a question over here.
Yeah, hi. My name is Nathan Halverson. I'm a reporter with the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat. Santa Rosa is home to Zap electric cars, which got blasted in a recent story in Wired magazine, but essentially for being a pump and dump kind of scam operation. But the article was actually a little critical too of the whole electric car industry for not calling these guys out. So my question to you is, will you call Zap out?
Well, yeah. I mean, Zap does not have a track record of delivering what they say. Yeah. I mean, I would.
That's about as much calling out as you're going to get Elon Musk to do. That's my guess. That is a call out in this guy's book.
Yeah. I mean, they're not good. I mean, if anyone's curious, I mean, I think the Wired article is reasonably accurate. Yeah, it's unfortunate. We did face the problem with Tesla in the beginning of having to deal with the fact that many prior electric car companies had been sort of scams or a lot of vaporware and stuff. With Tesla having had a bunch of delays and all that, it did hurt us perceptually. But fortunately, we're now in production at 10 cars a week, and that'll be ramping up to 30 cars a week by early next year. And so you're going to start seeing a lot of these cars on the road. Yeah, so at least it's real and all that. I think the people that know me know that I might be a little optimistic on schedules, but I always deliver.
Right. I'm sorry we can't take any more questions, but kittens are being threatened to be killed back there if I don't wrap this up. So thank you very much, Elon, for coming here.